A group of Chicago aldermen want one of their own booted from his chairmanship. Chicago alderman Byron Sigcho Lopez participated in a rally last week where an American flag was burned. Now more than 10 of his city council colleagues want Sigcho Lopez censured and removed as chairman of the Housing Committee. Our political reporter Marianne Ahern is here now with the latest on this. Marianne?
Good afternoon. The rally happened last Friday, Alex. There are photos that show Alderman Sigcho Lopez in front of a charred flag. He says he was not there when the flag was burned and didn't know that's what was in front of him when he spoke.
I stood with the veterans in front of the Art Institute in 1968 when the American flag was being disrespected.
Former alderman and veteran Jim Balzer joined the group of aldermen and veterans to condemn Alderman Byron Sigcho Lopez from participating in a rally where a flag was burned. Were you there or were you not there when the flag was being burned?
I wasn't there.
Did you not see what you were standing in front of?
I mean, I don't know how many people go into a press conference and look at the floor when they speak, but again, I wasn't aware of it.
These aldermen are not buying his explanation. While they held their news conference today, protesters interrupted them. The alderman believes Sigcho Lopez sent those protesters.
We have the right as well to call out our colleague who should be held to a higher standard when he's making comments about canceling the DNC, making comments about the commander-in-chief in front of a charred flag.
I have fought to protect his right to be reprehensible, and I do it again. Look, Byron has the right to be inflammatory, as you do.
Aldermen say without an apology, Sigcho Lopez should be removed as chairman of the Housing Committee. Sigcho Lopez is not apologizing. The rally he participated in wants to cancel the DNC, and Sigcho Lopez agrees with them. So you do want to cancel the DNC?
Yes, I'm not made apologies for that. That's what they want me to apologize. I'm not going to apologize for that because the president and many people in the leadership have neglected that issue of migration, have still neglected the genocide in Gaza.
It is not yet clear if there will be a special city council meeting on this controversy. We asked the mayor's office for reaction. It took 4 days for a response. His spokesman today says the mayor has no comment.
I'm Alderman Tabarez, 23rd Ward. We are all here to not debate or argue the legality of the American flag. We understand it's a protected right, but we are here to address the failed leadership of one of our colleagues. And to start us off, I want to thank our veterans who are here today. Thank you. Give them a round of applause. Thank you. For our veterans, thank you for your service, for being here and supporting us. I want to start off with some speakers. After the speakers, we are going to open up to questions, but we're going to start with our speakers who are here. We have veterans speaking as well as aldermen speaking. And I'm going to start off with Alderman Jim Balzer, who is here today and will be kicking us off. Alderman.
Thank you, Alderman. Number one, I'm honored to be here, and as Al Pacino said, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. But with this one, you don't have to pull me. I am here, and I want to thank all my former colleagues for remembering me and not shoving me in the back and asking me to come down here. Everyone knows how I am with the military and the veterans. And I go back a long way with the American flag and what it means. I stood with the veterans in front of the Art Institute in 1968 when the American flag was being disrespected. When I see flags that are torn and tattered, I go and ask that they replace them. I have a long connection with this, with the military. When I served in Vietnam, we lost 135 men on an operation within 2 months. They came back in flag-draped coffins. That's what should be remembered, what the flag stands for, what it's a symbol of. When the Marines raised the flag on Iwo Jima, it wasn't a piece of cloth that they raised. It was the American flag. When the Marines raised the flag at Hue City, they had to fight their way into the Citadel, cut down the North Vietnamese flag, and put up the American flag. That's the symbolism of the American flag. Now, people could say burning the American flag is a right. That's your opinion, okay? Mine is support the flag, support the country. Before I end, I wanted to mention something. My family, my grandfather served in World War I and World War II. When he was buried, they put the American flag on his coffin. My mother served in World War II. when she was buried, they put the American flag on her coffin. When my dear brother John died a couple of years ago, he was with the 101st in Vietnam, they put the American flag on his coffin. At the Vietnam Veterans Memorial at State and Wacker, there are 2,936 Americans from Illinois that were killed, that were buried with the American flag. I do not support what was done here, burning the American flag. There's other ways you can protest than burning the American flag. Thank you. God bless America. Semper Fi.
Next, I'd like to call Tommy Russell to come up and speak. Tommy, please.
Thank you. I want to say there's a couple of days in our American history that kind of ring heavy on us. One was December 7th, 1941. One was September 11th, 2001. The other days are December 8th, 1941, and September 12th, 2001. That's when America was proud to be America. We had flags were flying all over the place. It was a great spirit. We were all gung-ho, ready to go. Since that time, it seems like things have changed a little bit. We forgot. We forgot all those poor people who were killed in the Twin Towers and in Pennsylvania and in the Pentagon. Let's not ever forget them. And when you see an elected official standing over the ashes of a burnt American flag, it just makes your blood boil, mine anyhow. He has every right to be there. They had every right to protest and everything else. But when we go out, we escort these men and women who come home under the American flag, the KIAs. If you ever did anything in your life, it's one of the most hardest things you can do, is see a family grieve and you're taking a casket off a plane under the American flag. These families gave everything for that American flag. They made the ultimate sacrifice for that American flag. And an elected official should not be standing over the ashes of that. He should be there supporting these families that gave the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you.
Tommy Russell, thank you for your service in the Marines, and thank you for your words. Thank you. Next, I'd like to call up Marcos Torres, who served in the Army. Marcos.
My name is Marcos Torres. I am the commander of the 2nd District of the American Legion of the state of Illinois. But I'm here today to represent all veterans in the city of Chicago, all veterans in Cook County, and all veterans in the United States of America. I'm here because of advocacy. Because how can an elected official stand over the charred remains of a burned American flag and advocate properly for veterans? How can he vote in City Hall on legislation that affects veterans? Not, veterans in the city that are black and brown veterans at that. Things that will change those veterans' lives. It is reprehensible, this behavior. We do so much work in the city. I've worked hand in hand with many of the aldermen here in the city to bring the veterans in and let the veterans know that the United States government and the city of Chicago is here for them, and that we will be there for them and we give them the benefits and the resources that they need to be successful because of their sacrifice. What is the message then when you have an alderman standing over the charred remains of a burned flag? As a veteran, does that make you feel that the United States government or your city council has your best interest? I know it doesn't make me. But I am so proud to see the elected officials that stood here today and said, you know what, we will not stay silent. We won't let this happen, and we are going to fight for veterans and advocate for veterans in a real way in our city. My name is Marcos Torres, and if you are a veteran, find me and I will help you. Thank you.
Our last speaker with veteran is Jesse Rojo, who served in the U.S. Army. Jesse, can you please come up? Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jesse Rojo, and I'm the son of immigrants. And for 10 years, I have worked as a community organizer. Let me be upfront. I understand the anger that drives these protests. I understand the injustices that exist in this country, but I'm a soldier because of the lessons of my father. He taught me that although this country is far from perfect, and far too many times it is far, far from perfect, it is still a country that holds a promise for all. That if you work hard, you can strive for something better. That if you work hard, you can create a better life for you and your children. That promise is something that gave hope to my father and my mother as they came to this country. And that hope is symbolized by this flag. And so for it to be burned is disgusting. And for an elected official to speak in front of a burned flag, it is something that is beyond forgiveness. And so I really hope that this is heard. Thank you all so much.
I'd like to recognize some of the aldermen who are here today. We have Alderman Spazzato, Alderman Quinn, Alderman Cardona, Alderman Silverstein, Alderman Lopez, Alderman Riley, Alderman Napolitano, Alderman Villegas, Alderman Conway, Alderman Taliaferro, and myself, Alderman Tabarez. I'd like to start with our next speakers, aldermen. We have 3 aldermen who will be speaking. Our first who will kick us off is Alderman Chairman Taliaferro. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I am honored to have served this country in the United States Marine Corps and the U.S. Army. Let me first thank our media for joining us this morning. And let me especially thank the brave men and women that stand with us this morning that have served not only this state, but this country to help form a foundation that we as a city and as a country that we can stand on proudly. Illinois is home to more than 500,000 or nearly 500,000 veterans, 68,000 of whom are homeless, 1,173 of whom I proudly represent in the 29th Ward. To me, it's not enough that we honor them and respect them as their bodies return to U.S. soil in flag-draped coffins. As elected officials, it is our responsibility to honor and serve them every single day. And that's why we're here. My colleagues have joined us this morning to stand up for what we believe is a higher standard of conduct that we've imposed upon ourselves as elected officials representing the great residents of this city. Also a higher standard that's imposed upon us by the media, by this city, the residents of this city, and certainly by the judicial system, time and time again. And I want us to be very clear that neither of us are accusing our colleague of burning a U.S. flag or desecrating a flag. But what we are standing here representing, that in the backdrop, in the foreground of our colleague's speech, stood a sign that accused the President of the United States in his elected capacity as 35th Ward Democratic Committeeman and as 35th Ward Alderman that accused, apologize, not 35th, but 25th, that accused our president of genocide and stood in the backdrop of a burned flag. So we're not accusing him of violating any constitutional rights. But what we are saying, his conduct and his speech was reprehensible to a point where we are demanding that he give account for his actions. I thank you for joining us this morning, and I certainly appreciate the service of all the men and women that fought under a flag to defend this country, the democracy that we stand for and the freedom that we stand for in this country. And that should never be diminished. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your service in the Marines and U.S. Army. Thank you. Now I ask Alderman and Chairman Gil Villegas of the 36th Ward, who served in the Marines. Alderman.
Good morning, and good morning to my fellow veterans and colleagues for being here today. When I returned back from the Marine Corps in the 90s, being fully employed and having to come back to Chicago without a network or safety net in place, having to go to unemployment, but still being able to work, really put me in a position where I was thinking about, like, what are we doing for our veterans? Now, as an elected official and working with my colleagues within the Veteran Caucus, we've begun to take a look at policies to change, because we get that frustration. It's very disheartening when you see a veteran honorably discharged, served his country, and then having nothing in place. So in the City Council, we've put forward policies around veteran business enterprise programs, veteran preference for hiring. Right now in the Housing Committee, we have a 10% ARO adjustment to allow for veterans stuck in the Housing Committee that we want to get moved. Anytime we talk about homelessness, the first population they talk about is veterans. What about the veterans? Well, there's legislation right now in the Housing Committee that can be an opportunity to help deal with this. It's been mentioned before that we have to hold ourselves to a higher standards as elected officials. And the policies and the advocacy that we're doing for our constituents, and the policy and advocacy that I'm doing specifically with my veteran colleagues for the veteran community, has to be respected. And so when we take a look at what transpired last week, we've all been invited, elected officials have invited to press conferences before. And sometimes you're there to talk about the issue, but other things come up. When you can say, hey, you know what, I support the initiative, but this is going too far. And that's an opportunity where our colleagues should have said, look, I support whatever he supports, but this right here I can't support. And that's what the veteran colleagues and our other colleagues that are here today are calling out, is that we have to be held to a higher standard. And I look forward to working with our colleague to move forward that legislation that deals with the 10% ARO for veterans, so we can begin to house our veterans that have paid the ultimate sacrifice for us. Thank you.
Now I would like to ask Alderman Bill Conway to come up and speak, and thank you for your service in the Navy. Alderman.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. For those who don't know me, I'm Alderman Bill Conway of the 34th Ward. I'm also still Lieutenant Commander Bill Conway of the United States Navy, and the only active military reservist in the history of City Council. And in that role, the Navy sent me to Qatar, Afghanistan, and Germany, amongst others. In fact, I've heard that ring because it replicates the indirect fire alarm at Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan. And like all veterans, I took an oath to defend freedom. And that includes the freedom of speech that gives the people the right to burn flags or speak freely with the ashes of the American flag at their feet, like our colleague Alderman Sigcho Lopez did. And it's clear from the pictures that we've seen that he knew where he was standing. But I have fought to protect his right to be reprehensible, and I do it again. Look, Byron has the right to be inflammatory, as you do, but he has a bigger responsibility as a committee chair and member of the mayor's leadership team, because this job isn't about elevating people who want to burn everything down. It's about bringing people together to build our communities up. Frankly, I'd rather not be standing here. I'd prefer Alderman Sigcho Lopez apologize for his role in this, the mayor condemn his actions of a leader who seems to somehow revel in division. But unfortunately, those things have not happened. And that's why I stand with my colleagues in the Veterans Caucus, my colleagues up here in City Council, as well as my fellow veterans up here in condemning this behavior and seeking a path to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. In closing, I want to thank our veterans who are here today and our colleagues supporting. We will now take questions, but in closing, I just want to add that we're all here to address, like I mentioned earlier, the failure of the leadership of our colleagues. And we are demanding that our mayor, Brandon Johnson, call for his resignation as chair of the Housing Committee. And
Reminds me of the 60s.
And so, I'm going to say this one more time. We're demanding that Brandon Johnson, our mayor, call for the resignation of Byron Cicho Lopez as chair of the Housing Committee. If he doesn't, we're going to be calling for a special city council meeting to remove him as chair. Okay, so now, en español solamente quiero decir que estamos aquí para demandar que... Okay, we now are going to take some questions from the media. Okay, en español. Sí. Okay. Solamente en español quiero decir que nosotros estamos aquí para demandar que nuestro alcalde Brandon Johnson renuncie el concejal Byron Cicho López de su comité de encargo de su comité de vivienda. Y también queremos que si el alcalde no lo hace de renunciar a su cargo, vamos a llamar un concilio especial de una junta concilio especial. And now, yes.
Can we have the Sergeant at Arms please restore order to this so we can continue our press conference, please?
Okay. We're going to ask, we're just going to say some remarks in Spanish. Do the Spanish part. Okay. So I'm just going to repeat what I just said earlier before getting interrupted in Spanish, is that nosotros estamos aquí demandar que nuestro alcalde Brandon Johnson, que queremos que él pide renunciar Byron Cicho López, concejal, como su encargo como el comité de vivienda. Y si no lo hace, si el alcalde no lo hace, nosotros vamos a pedir una junta especial del concilio aquí en la ciudad. Nosotros nos vamos a reunir. Ahora vamos a pedir preguntas y tenemos una pregunta. La pregunta de nuevo, por favor. Mire, este no es el primer incidente que con el concejal Byron Cicho López, ni con sus aliados radicales. Esto no es el primer. Ellos están trabajando y ellos han incendiando discurso de odio contra grupos religiosos, contra grupos de diferentes raíces y contra el presidente de Estados Unidos. Y aquí en la ciudad va a venir, en la ciudad de Chicago, va a estar en el escenario nacional de la Convención Demócrata. Y esto da una mala imagen a la ciudad de Chicago. Ellos no representan, es lo que ellos le están diciendo, no todos en Chicago están de acuerdo. Y entonces necesitamos que el alcalde, Brandon Johnson, diga que no está de acuerdo también, ¿dónde está? Y si él no pide que él renuncie, nosotros vamos a llamar una junta especial para removerlo como su posición de cargo del Comité de Vivienda.
Alderman Villegas, so I had a discussion, tried to have a discussion with our colleague. Matter of fact, a couple of our colleagues received text messages from the alderman. Listen, I agree with you. This could have been blown over very simple. As I stated before, a lot of times we're invited to press conferences, and we agree what's initially being discussed. However, sometimes it gets a little fringe, and so you have to excuse yourself. Now, our colleague is saying that he didn't see it. All he had to have said, look, I didn't see it, I apologize, and it's over with. Instead of doubling down, saying it's his right, it is his right. And he should be thanking Bill Conway, Chris Taliaferro, myself, and all the veterans here for that ability to do that. Okay? So instead of apologizing, saying it was a mistake, instead of apologizing and said a mistake, doubles down, sends out a mass text, come to City Hall to counter the press conference that's being done by the veterans. This is the type of person we're dealing with. Instead of taking responsibility, doubles down and says, no, I'm being attacked. I'm the victim. No, you know who's the victim? That Marine who burned that flag, that Marine who burned that flag, who wasn't taken care of and feels lost, feels hopeless. But that's why the council is doing our part to put forward policies to help our veterans, because we're not going to forget our veterans. Sergeant at Arms, please. We would. So, as I stated before, when I was honorably discharged from the Marines after serving in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, went from being 100% fully employed to not having a job and not really having a pathway to employment. We get that frustration. I understand that Marine who feels that the government's letting him down and the fact that he has to protest. He's protected that right, so have we. But we have the right as well to call out our colleague who should be held to a higher standard when he's making comments about canceling the DNC, making comments about the commander-in-chief in front of a charred flag, and not apologizing for it. We feel that this could have been easily addressed had he called, and when I had a discussion with him, just to say, hey, I apologize. I'll make a statement apologizing, but instead makes a statement saying, this Marine did it. We're not saying that Alderman Byron Citro Lopez burned a flag. What we're saying is he was there partaking in a rally to cancel the DNC, making negative comments, making comments against the commander-in-chief in front of a charred flag. And again, all he had to say is, hey, I didn't see it there, and I apologize, and we're done. And this would have been done. But instead of doubling down, sending text messages to our colleagues, saying all types of things. So this is what this is about accountability, about the fact that we're held to a higher standard.
All right, we're gonna take two more questions. Yes.
I can answer that, because yes, this is divisive. This is a distraction, and it's authored by Byron Cicho Lopez, who should be worrying about the migrant shelter in his ward, who should be worrying about finding housing options for those who have been sent here. Those are things that we should be working on. So maybe those questions about how divisive this is should be with the individual who's been playing this up for his base to take advantage, to distract from the problems in his own ward and from his own responsibilities.
Last question, please. Last question, Jake. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody. That was the last. Yes, we are calling. That was his question. Thank you. Let's. Resigns from chair. That's it, everybody. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.